What is up, guys? It's Austin here today on Unfiltered Wellness. Going to be coming at it from a solo episode today, diving deep into some of the things I love most, which is going to be more of the education side of things. So, gear up. Hope you guys are ready to learn something today that we can take and directly apply and get better from. So, why training weights for endurance is holding you back in the sport of HYROX. So, the very first thing when we get into this, there are three methods of training. There's max effort, there's dynamic effort, and there's repetition effort. I see so many times people just do sets of 8, 10, 12, 20. And there's so much neglect towards sets of 1, 2, 3. And then even with that, there's neglect towards moving these weights fast. There are two ways to increase running efficiency. You can increase stride length and you can increase stride frequency. To increase stride length, what we do is we need to apply more force. And so we like to use the max effort method for that. The max effort method is defined as lifting a weight that is 90% or above. So like what we like to do is like to do 3 singles at 90% or above in the sport of HYROX. That helps take care of that. That pushes up force production so we can actually, like we said, stride length. We're not trying to reach further when we run, but we're carrying more distance because we're putting out more force. Again, this is considering you're a good runner, you've got your base built, so forth. These are those last pieces of the puzzle as we get into more of these advanced mechanics behind how can we really build the structure, for somebody to excel in the sport. Part 2 to that, we have the dynamic effort method. So when we talk about stride frequency, how long is that foot staying on the ground? Are we able to get it back off? Where's the pop per se that's coming from that? So we like to use dynamic effort method for this. We talked max effort was 3 sets of 1 at 9%. Dynamic effort method, this is going to coincide with different special strengths. So there's going to be speed strength, strength speed, explosive strength. So a lot of different ways we can hit this and different strengths we can go about it. What we're typically going to do is we're going to sit with about 50%, anywhere from 40 to 60% of max load on the bar. And then we're going to use accommodating resistance, whether this comes in the form of bands or chains. Is dependent on the person and the equipment that they have available. We love to utilize bands for this. I like bands most because there's a lot more we get from it. When we have weights on the bar, cool, they're there. When we have chains, cool, they're there. The bands actively pull you down harder, which you create, think of it in creating this bigger band per se. Thinking about rubber bands, we have one that's, thin that we can pull back and shoot. And then we have one that's thicker that we can pull back and shoot. Which one's going to be able to convert, store, and then express more energy? That's going to be the thicker band. And so when we're doing this dynamic effort method, what we're trying to do, especially with the band tension, is create a body that can take on more energy and actually convert that, thinking kinetic energy, potential energy, we're in the relationship of the two. I think these are great starting points for enhancing stride length, stride frequency to actually get better and get faster in the sport. Notice we have not talked anything yet about the repetition effort method, which is number 3, max effort, dynamic effort, and repetition effort. Repetition effort is where I see most people spend most of their strength training time. And I don't think this is I'm not against it. We use this as well, but we use it in a different way per se. We're going to apply sets of 8, 10, 12, 20, 50, even sets of 100 to 200 with small special exercises. We're going to use these big lifts, that max effort method, to break down where technical issues are going. The body's going to move where it's the strongest. So if we see somebody doing let's take, for example, a deadlift. Let's do a conventional deadlift. Somebody goes pull it, they're doing great. They add 10 more pounds and all of a sudden they won't budge off the floor. It just flew the rep before that. Why won't it budge now? Oftentimes this is a lack of ability to transfer force through the stomach, so core weakness, as well as a hamstring weakness. So I guarantee if we target our accessory work, our special exercises, our sets of 8, 10, 12, 20 around those things, this person's going to move more efficiently. I don't care if it's about making the deadlift stronger. It's just a diagnostic tool to understand where the body is weaker and where it is stronger so that we know exactly where to direct our special exercise work. We don't want to just put special exercises, just throw on more accessory volume. No, we want to put it directed and targeted towards exactly what that individual needs. And by assessing with the max effort method, you get a way to really see this in real time of how to set this and what accessories go about, what special exercise. And even when you start to break that down, you can have you can have the same lift. Let's use a dumbbell split squat and a barbell split squat off of pins. We're both using a split squat. They're both sets of 8. But you can get so many different intents behind this as well. You could have somebody doing their, off-season block of training and they're doing eccentrics, and they might be using the barbell and doing it off of pins. Coming down for 4 seconds each rep, pausing on the pin, then exploding up. Why the pin? What's this do? This is creating more starting strength. When we have this process of stop then start, I love this for what it does to the body. Most of running is elastic. If all we train is elasticity, we're losing. I think of it like if we had, let's pretend we get a rating for elasticity and we get a rating for starting strength. Let's say one of them's a 90 and overall and the other's a 60 overall. Why would we not go put the 60 and try to get as close as we can to 90 of our strength to where both of them are the same? The more advantages we have created, the better off we're going to be within the sport. Not everybody's willing to go there, and that's okay. But for the people who are willing to go there, there's ways to get there. There's always, always, always a way. And so, the other concept of that, we talk about using that same movement. Maybe somebody's doing, we'll use the same movement, split squat off pins. They're just going through it. They're doing sets of 8. Cool. Same exact thing. There's no eccentric, no this, no that. What are we getting out of it? What's the purpose? There's always a reason for stuff, but I'd make sure you really understand why you're doing each and everything within the lift as a whole. It's like, well, I'm getting hip mobility worked out of it. I'm getting internal external rotation, this, that, the other, the hip complex. Like, cool, get that, great. Just make sure you have the intent. And why then does that matter? How does that directly tie into you getting a faster performance? Or better way to say that, what does that do underneath everything to enhance your ability to then take on volume and more volume and recover from it so you can take on even more? We like to rotate exercises. We don't sit there and do the same exercises week after week after week after week. And the reason that we do that is because it enhances recoverability. If you do the same exercise for 6 weeks in a row, great for bodybuilding, absolutely phenomenal. But all we're doing is, yes, we're getting better at the movement, but are we getting better at expressing our ability to perform in the sport? Don't always necessarily think so. And here's why I say that. You're getting better at the movement because you're practicing the movement. Our sport is not the movement if it's HYROX. Our sport is all those movements of the sports, your stations, your running, and so forth. I don't want to just get better at the movement. I want to be able to get better at the needs underneath that drive the movement to get better. And so when we rotate these exercises, for example, let's say you had a dumbbell split squat for your sets of 8, you had your barbell split squat off of pins for sets of 8, and you had a safety bar active foot split squat for sets of 8. It can all be the same, yes, this can be different rep schemes, this, that, and that, but just for the simple complexity of this equation, let's do that over the course of our 3 weeks. What's going to happen is we can come back, let's pretend week 4, we go back to doing the same thing we did with the dumbbell split squat we did week 1. You should be able to smash that record. Even though you haven't done it, you've still been training very similar movement patterns, albeit with slightly different loading schemes, slightly different joint angles, all these things that can actually help keep us healthy. And the cool kicker of that as well is the fact that as you're moving through these, as you're going week to week to week over these, you're not degrading the nervous system because you're not tapping into that exact same movement. You're actually being able to recover faster, stay fresher. It's something that we can steal from the world of CrossFit, especially with how they've applied conjugate methodology and how it fits with that sport. It's a phenomenal tool and allows people to get an advantage and to be able to handle more training load and, again, recover faster. The whole thing always comes back to recovery. Just because you can do X doesn't always mean you should. We want to be able to recover faster so we can go do X, Y, and Z as well. And so I'd say breaking those down, it's a really good, solid understanding. They should all 3 have pieces in place within a program. There should be max effort in there. There should be dynamic effort in there. There should be repetition effort in there. Now, do those look different at different times in the season? Yes. We mentioned using something like eccentrics off of pins, which I actually talked with Ben the other day about. He's coming off of a race in Houston. Great time. Looked like he could have gone on a run again right after, but we're going to get ready for Sweden. And so good application of how we're applying these 3 methodologies for Ben right now as an example, and maybe some things you can steal for yourself. So Ben will still do max effort upper and he'll do max effort lower. So that 90% for 3 sets of 1 we talked about, Ben will be utilizing over the coming 4, 6, 8, upwards of even, 9, 10 weeks out. Usually about 3 weeks out, we start to pull max effort, not having it on both sides. And sometimes we'll do that at 6 weeks. But when we look at repetition effort, like Ben's going to have in place too. So, twice a week, he's got once it's going to be heavy upper for his max effort. Once it's going to be heavy lower for his max effort. He's got dynamic effort. Right now, this being a, really 2-week tissue block, making sure we've got everything healthy and ready to go. We're going to utilize dynamic effort days, twice a week still. I still want an increased rate of force development. We could shift that over and do no dynamic and just do repetition effort. But I really, really think that keeping the system in place provides the biggest bang for our buck over time. Not to say there's not times we don't change it, but right now with Ben's case, we want to keep that the same. So we'll have our, 7 sets of 3, 9 sets of 3 with that 40 or 60% load we talked about, including the accommodating resistance on top of that. Really focusing on moving those lifts fast, whether it be from a squat variation, a bench, a deadlift, a push press, a push jerk. We have so many options that we can utilize within that wave there. But when we get into his repetition effort and how we're applying that, we mentioned using eccentrics off of pins earlier, an example. We're going to go heavy on this with Ben over this course of these next 2 weeks. Really trying to put on good tissue quality, make sure everything's good and locked in. Eccentrics are a big stressor on the body, so we are going to be pulling back a little bit on how much conditioning he's doing in regards to like lactate kinetics and really pushing the sport-specific HYROX of everything. Not to say we won't still touch things, but we're not going to do as much of that right now, especially with, Sweden being, I want to say 12 weeks out. It could be wrong from exact today. I'd have to pull everything else back up, but I want to say we're 12 weeks out. I just know I want 2 weeks first with repetition effort and really hammering these things using the eccentric component with him. Why things like off of pins? Well, if we are getting really heavy and we are looking at, really trying to push us, well, pins give us an ability to not get hurt. It saves us. Where do people get hurt in a squat, in a bench? Typically, it's going to be at the bottom of the lift where they go to reverse it. By coming onto pins, we also increase safety with that. There's a lot of other athletes using this. Shout out to Ryan Gibney. Using it with some of the Elite 15 athletes when it comes to things like, bench presses off of pins. There's a lot of different tools that are at our disposal we can use and utilize. We want to make sure we use the right things at the right time in regards to what that athlete needs. After we get done with those eccentrics, there's, a giant wave you can run into with how to use your accessory work with isometrics and concentrics and, doing things where we pause, doing things where we go fast. And there's a million ways to get to Rome. I just think it's important to identify, what you need at that time. And so kind of simple way to put that, if you're deep in an off season, use some eccentrics here and there. If you're pushing really high mileage, maybe don't use as many eccentrics, especially on the lower body, maybe just on the upper. Lower body gets a huge neural component, a huge hormonal component as well in those regards. And so I do really like to utilize that at the right time. But if you're 2 weeks out from a race, I probably would not be leaning into heavy eccentrics right then. Sets of, we talked about sets of 8, 10, 12, 20, 50, 100, 200 in that repetition effort method category, which is what I want to stick with primarily for the rest of this conversation today. Really understanding how to apply these and where to use them. I've got to have great opportunities working with athletes in all kinds of different sports, whether it be bodybuilding, powerlifting, CrossFit, HYROX, Ironmans, marathon, cycling. I mean, there's been just such a wide array. General health, I have fun with all of it, but you get to see, even more importantly, different patterns and how to take advantage of those. And so repetition effort is applied to a HYROX athlete. I like to think about the sport and think about what things can potentially break down. Most of our volume should be hit at doing that. Runners notoriously have tighter hips. I love sumo deadlifts and box squats. Box squats would be my favorite for those individuals. And that's not like sitting down, throwing your knees out in front. I mean, like really a true box squat, sitting back, getting the knee over the ankle rather than out over the toes, using the hamstrings and, really utilizing the hips. So, one thing people could do after they've done, a heavy lift or a fast lift, Or maybe they're just doing a repetition effort only day. Maybe there's their last day of the week. They had a third lifting day in there, and they're just doing repetition effort that day for helping make body parts more durable, where it matters. And so doing a box squat on that day, they might be doing sets of 8. What I love with that is put that box right above parallel and work on getting your width a little bit more and more as you're going. Another way you can do that is you can stack up, 4 different 10-pound plates on top of it, putting you above parallel, where by the end of it, you're actually at or even below parallel. So you do 2 or 3 reps. Somebody removes a 45 or a 10-pound plate off there. You do another 3 or 4, take another 10, 3 or 4, another 10, 3 or 4. So by the end of that set, you've gone from being above parallel at the start on your squat when you pause on that box to coming all the way down even below parallel by the end of it. This is a great tool to be able to get a lot of bang for your buck. If you're only going to take one takeaway from this, I would say box squat and do it from these ascending to descending heights. This is going to help and open up a lot of hip mobility for you. It's going to give you a lot more function around the hips. It's going to give you access to more musculature you haven't always had, and more important, that's going to aid in your ability to recover even faster. Make sure your special exercises are working in your favor, giving you what you need, not just from a strength standpoint, making sure, I can hit a little bit more weight, but also in regards to making sure you get the right special strengths, hit with that based on your needs. And in addition to that, getting enough of the volume for the places needed. We talked about using the hips, making sure they're getting trained, really pushing apart and using those, not just sticking in the quads. But I'd say another area too that I think often can be really benefited in the sport of HYROX, just drilling your posterior chain. So we talked about the hips already, but what about your glutes? What about your hamstrings, your calves? Going through and really absolutely annihilating these areas from an accessory standpoint with small special exercises. So one of our favorites that we like to utilize is back extensions. So using a 45-degree back extension machine, you can go through, 3 sets of 20 max dumbbell load. And instead of just going here, down and up, we want to actually round this thing and then unround, unround, unround. So we're getting full articulation of the spine. This keeps everything healthy. And I guarantee if you go through those and you really fight through it, not just rush through the reps, you will get a ton out of these. You might be lit up the next day, so make sure, if you're utilizing that, you might need a day off the following day, your first time or two around. But also at the same time, if you have a high enough work capacity and you have been hitting these areas, you're gonna be able to take that on and keep moving, which is what we want. We want to see people be able to take on as much volume as possible, not just taking it on and surviving it, but really thriving through it, which is a big reason why we push so much into our HYROX performance nutrition model, where we start the base of everything with food, and then we build up from there. So thinking food, supplementation, lifestyle, what factors can we change there? Is there anything we can tweak on training? Is there anything that's, still being left on the table that gives us some gains that we can take advantage of? First, you got to be able to recover from it, though. We're not going to throw in max effort, dynamic effort, and max height jumps, high volume special exercises. If somebody's already struggling to recover, we're first going to start with going back and rebuilding their base. Is there some movement quality that needs to be rebuilt? How is their food intake? Are they eating enough? Can they take in enough? How's their GI system? All these things come back in to help us be able to understand that athlete and really push that forward. And so I just wanted to give a quick little plug on that of, exactly what that is. HYROX Performance Nutrition. It's for people trying to really push and see what is possible. I believe that if further down the rabbit trail you go, there are certain truths that just start to stand out. And one of those being, the rotation of different strength methods between repetition effort, dynamic effort, max effort. Why? At the very beginning, I said, training weights for endurance is holding people back. What I meant by that is only doing the sets of 8 to 12. And here's the cool thing with that. Am I advocating not? No, I already said I still like those, just in the right place, having the other methods in place with it too. If you can only bench press, better yet, let's say your max sled push is 200 pounds. That's all you can push. Well, how hard is that going to be for, let's pretend the goal of that session is you have to push a 150-pound sled and all you can push is 200. That's your max. That's going to be pretty hard. What if your max was 300-pound sled push? Now, how much easier is that 150-pound sled to push? That is part of the reasons whenever it comes to even station efficiency. We talked about using max effort to apply it for running, but you also use it for your stations too. The more sub-maximal the efforts are of each station for you to go after, the lower your heart rate's going to stay. That's where we talk about, movement economy. There's three bigs in the sport of HYROX. You have your aerobic development, you have lactate kinetics, and you also have movement economy. These are three from the physical side that we really, that's it. Those are the three pillars. So there are a lot of things within each of those, especially in the lactate kinetics department, absolutely. But generally speaking, those are the three we need to hit. Movement economy gives you a bang for your buck in both because, again, it helps you be able to handle more volume and recover from it faster. Repetition effort is one of the biggest pieces. I'm not advocating against it. I'm just saying use it properly. We one of the other ways we'll apply that in regards to, special exercise in the sport of HYROX, we do big sets of unbroken wall balls, building people up from sets of 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way up to 100. And even, being able to do sets of 150 with a weight vest on top of that, making sure that, we're far ready for the sport and its demands, not just ready for 100, but we could do even more, had needed. We like to rotate in things like box squats with the wall balls, saving the hips. Again, coming back into those, changing the joint angles. There's only a few movements in the sport of HYROX. If that's all we ever do, we're just beating up the body over and over and over the same components. And so, yes, we do need to be good at those, but what are variations around that we can use with the repetition effort method to be able to enhance the recoverability of that individual? You can do, to get better at wall balls, you can obviously do wall balls. You can do front squats. You can do thrusters. You can do box squats. You have so many different options. What we do personally to try to figure out what variations are needed, I love to look at different athletes and see where they are and let them actually be able to compare where they are amongst exercises. If you are, if five people are all, 63-minute time on their HYROX race right now, but one of them is, 60 pounds behind on this exercise, that's probably the exercise he needs to work on to get better. It's probably showing where his weakness is. If he improves that, I guarantee it's going to help him have a carryover to the sport. Let's use the same type of thought process in regards to different workouts. So one of the ones we use, a key workout we like to utilize, is called Brittany. It's 10 500-meter rows, 1 minute breaks in between them. Who can win it? Basically, we're looking to see, who stays in the 130s. And then even more important than that, can somebody stay in the 130s and also keep their breathing in control throughout those last few rounds? If 9 people can do that and one person can't, well, then they obviously know what to go get better out there too. If you have 9 people that run, 3-minute 1Ks and then the other person's running a 320K, you've got a leakage there. Hey, you need to be able to put out more force. You have people that can do the repeats and keep that tension there. And you have other people who come out a minute 30 on that Brittany workout and die off at a minute 50 by the end. Like, lactate kinetics is in their department. They need to go do more of that. They need to spend more time there getting used to pacing and control. There are always ways to figure out what you need to do and get better at. I just love being able to have an environment of other individuals to be able to look at these records amongst to figure that out. That's one of the best parts of a team, is it actually gives you the ability to process and see, where am I lacking? Where am I doing good? And where can I get better at? The whole point is progression of the sport. And I just believe having the right tools is one of the biggest ways to be able to do that. For me, the conjugate system enhanced the ability to see breakdowns of how things work and also create belief on the back end because of that, on knowing that if I just do X, I can get to Y and Z, being able to apply that with athletes. I think this is one of the hugest sayings. And so I would say leaving everybody with thoughts today to carry out. There's a book recommendation I would give anybody who is actually really looking to see what can happen in the world of HYROX sport performance. And that book would be, it's West Side Barbell, Special Strengths Development. It's a little bit more advanced, but I think it is a great way to get the curiosity really spiked around what are some things we could be doing different in the sport to actually enhance our ability to go further and further and further, instead of having these plateaus and getting stuck there for a year, 2 years, like I see a lot of athletes, and then eventually leaving it because they're not getting better or swapping over to different divisions or this, that, the other. If you just equip yourself with the right knowledge and the right environment, you're going to be able to continue making progress over time. And the last but not least, like I said, HYROX performance nutrition. If you're looking to get right, you're looking to get help with really enhancing your recoverability or trainability and finding that new level, that next new gear, we're always welcome to help people. all you gotta do is shoot us a message, and we'll be happy to get in touch with you. And really, more than anything, go through a consult first and just make sure, like, where are the gaps, where are the performance pieces that could be put on. And if there's not something that we believe is going to be right for us, we'll 100 million thousand percent be glad to refer you over to somebody who can help. But at the same time, too, we're always looking to answer questions. You guys can shoot us messages and in our Instagrams. You can pop us over. Whether you shoot messages over to Gabe, shoot messages over to me, or even on our Instagram over at map.coaching underscore. Shoot us a message anywhere, and we will get back to you. Looking forward to it. Hope you guys get some great takeaways from this, and we will be back at it next week.